Magandang araw po sa ating mga taga-subaybay dito sa programa natin sa Toti Speaks. Handog sa inyo ng Katipunan Channel. Ika-24 ng araw, buwan ng Hunyo, taon 2021, Huwebes. At humingi po ng konting paumanhin kung medyo nahuli itong aming programa dahil nga sa ibang mga paggagawa namin dito. Pero sa kasalukuyan ay meron tayong mga talagang nangangambalang pahayag o balita o mangyayari dito sa ating bansa, lalo-lalo na nagdeklara na ang ating Pangulo ng tuluyan na talagang ginagawa ng mandato itong bakuna. Ito po ibinuo natin itong kamakailan lang ang ating ulat. Andito sa inyo ang iyong lingkod, Toti Casiño. Ito po yung ating inuulat, no? Ayon po dito, next slide please. Nakuha natin itong mga impormasyon dito sa website ng Microsoft. Next slide please. Kasalukuyan, bumababa na po ang mga nakumpirmang merong hawaan ng COVID-19 kamakailan. Itong datos na to ay bago lang ito nung ika-23 itong buwan ng Hunyo. Next slide please. Bagamat ganun pa rin, ang pinapakita na itong pagbubuo nung nakarami ay dumadagdag pa rin. Pero bagamat bumababa na, pero ito ay nakikita tila pataas pa rin ang resulta ng mga nawaan ng COVID-19. Next slide please. Pero kung i-compare natin ang kabuuan nitong hawaan, kumpara sa bansang Estados Unidos at bansang Brazil at ng Pilipinas, pinakamababa pa rin kumpara sa tatlong bansa na ito. Kaya nga, ito ba talagang totoong pandemya na nangyari sa atin? O talagang ito ay sinasadyang panakot lamang sa isang bansa na may higit kumulang 110 milyong katao? Next slide please. At dito makikita nyo sa slide na to na ang mga active cases ay makikita nang bumaba na mula nung ika-21 ng Marso taong 2021. So mahigit mga 2 buwan na pababa na ng pababa ang nagkakahawaan ng COVID-19 dito sa bansa. Either yan ay dulot ng pagbabakuna o di kaya pagkakalat ng paggagamot ng ivermectin. Kung malala nyo po, ay pinahintulutan na ng ating pamahalaan na maaari ng maluwag na silang gumamit nitong gamot ng ivermectin at ganun din yung hydroxychloroquine. Next slide please. Pero ganoon pa man, sa taas ng itong numero ng namamatayan, may higit kumulang 23,000 na ang namatayan. Pero kung tutusin mo natin, yan 23,000 namatayan dito sa ating bansa ay walang katumbas sa mga namatay ng pneumonia na kada taon ipapalo ng mga higit kumulang ng mga 79,000 tao ang namamatay. Around 79,000 ang namamatay sa pneumonia lamang kada taon. Anywhere between 76, 77, 79,000 kung nasubaybayan mo yung ating ulat ng nakaraang araw. Kaya nga itong suma total na namatayan na sa COVID sa 23,000 ay hindi pa rin talagang ganun katindi ang namamatayan. Next slide please. At dito nga to, yung mga namamatay, bagamat bumulusok siya nung taon ng Abril, so itong taon na to, nung buwan ng Abril, ika-21, ay bumababa pa rin. Kaya nga, ito ba talagang kailangan nating pag-abalahan? Kailangan ba natin ipagpapanik? Yan ang ating inintindi para malaman natin kung meron bang katibayan ang panukala nitong kamakailan na pinahayag ng ating Pangulo. Next slide please. Sa buong total, 1,372,000 ang nagkaroon ng kaso ng COVID-19. At maliban din dyan, 23,000 pa lang ang namamatay. Pero sa loob ng 1,300,000 mahigit ang nagkaroon ng hawaan, 1,200,000, halos 300,000 ang nakarecover. Ibig sabihin niyan, mataas po ang recovery rate dito sa bansa natin. Kaya magpaano tayo, magpabakuna o hindi, mataas pa rin mula pa noong isang taon. Kaya nga, inihikayat nga natin, bakit ganito ang ating takbo at hindi pinapaliwanag ng ating mga kagawaran dito sa ating bansa kung ano talaga ang kalagayan. Dahil hindi naman natin itatapat ang kung ano mo nangyayari sa ibang bansa, sa buong daigdig, ay kaparehas natin. Dahil huwag natin kalimutan, tayo isang bansa na nagkakalat ng mga ibang isla at ipelago po tayo. Kaya kaya natin kontrolin ang paglaganap nitong mga sakit na to, katulad ng foot and mouth disease, hindi ganun basta-basta madaling kumalat yan. Hindi katulad sa mga bansa na dikit-dikit ang mga lupain nila. Kaya nga, yan isang advantage natin bilang isang archipelago. Next slide, please. Ito lang, itong linggo, nagpahayag na ang ating Pangulo, si Pangulong Duterte, na nananakot siya na ikukulong niya ang mga tao na ayaw magpabakuna. At meron nga tayo natanggap na balita, itong araw na to, na dyan mismo sa lungsod ng Davao ay pinagpipilitan magpabakuna, lalo na yung mga matatanda at ganoon din yung mga religious orders. Meron isang balita na isang matanda na pinagpilitan magbakuna. Sa loob ng 2 oras ay bigla na lang namatay. Pero hindi namin alam kung kumpirmado itong balita na to. Pero ganoon na nga, dito mismo sa lungsod ng Davao ay pinagpipilitan na nila yan. At ating alamin kung ito ba'y karapat-dapat. Next slide, please. Dito sa lalawigan ng Cebu, kung naalala nyo nakaraang linggo, ay pinahawatig natin na mismo ang gobernador ay nanatiling independyente sa kanilang panukala na pinagpipilitan nila, hindi nila sinusundan ang patakaran ng Interagency Task Force or IATF patungkol sa mga bumabalik ng mga Pilipino galing sa ibang bansa. Ngayong itong kamakailan, dahil nga nagpahiwatig ang ating Pangulo na nananakot siya na ikukulong niya hindi magpapabakuna, ay sinusundan na rin din niya ang mga patakaran ng IATF or Interagency Task Force Rules. Ano po ito? Next slide, please. Yan po ay pagpipilitan na di na sila ilalagay sa home quarantine, kundi ilalagay sila sa quarantine sa mga accredited hotel o kaya mga tanggapan. Pero ang sasagot po daw diyan, yung sa loob ng mga 7 hanggang 10 araw, ay ang panggastos po yan ay sagot po ng pamahalaan ng ating bansa. Pero ganun pa man, marami sa ating mga mamamayan na nagtatanong, kung yung mga hindi naman mga bumabalik ng Pilipino na hindi naman overseas workers, ay talagang bumibisita lang. Sino naman nagagastos ito? Pagdagdag, papaghihirap. Kaya nga po, ngayon ay makakapanayan po natin ang isang dalubhasa dito. Siya po ay tapos po ng doctorate in jurisprudence sa UK, sa England. At ngayon po nandun siya nakanatili sa San Diego, California. At nakasama na po natin siya rito dati. At meron siya ipapabahagi sa atin patungkol nga dito sa pangyayari sa ating bansa. Walang iba kundi si Dr. Robert Posadas. Magandang umaga, magandang gabi po sa inyo, Dr. Robert Posadas.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Well, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Toti. So what's the latest news now that you were mentioning that President Duterte is really imposing medical martial law in that he's going to force vaccination on senior citizens and others?
Not only senior citizens, but it's already requiring it even on the students that's going to go to school in the public school system. We're talking about 27 million children. School.
Okay.
And
then
making it a requirement that everybody must attend to the vaccination. Otherwise, they will not let them go to school. Now, the question is that the right of a state leader to enforce such regulation among our countrymen?
And then he started it already in Davao?
Yes.
Okay. This is considered undeclared martial law, but specifically, as you term it, a medical martial law. Well, actually, it's not even a medical martial law. What he's doing really is invoking the national emergency law. So it could be in a form of martial law in that he already exceeded his authority when the national emergency law has expired. Because the national emergency law, according to your constitution, 1987 constitution, the president is only allowed to impose national emergency law cumulatively for 6 months. So how long has it been now?
It's almost already a year and 1.5, 18 months.
Okay. And even before the end of the 6-month cumulative period, he should have, or he must, according to the Constitution, report to Congress to ask for an extension, which he has never done, right?
Well, he only has passed Republic Act 11332, which is just monitoring the spread of epidemics, but that's not allowing him to hold the entire country under a quarantine, a nationwide scale quarantine.
Okay, well, there's a big
So that has
difference
been passed.
between imposing martial law between what did you say again? What's he's been doing? What's the term that you said that he is supposed to be administering through the Department of Health administration
A
to monitor?
nationwide,
Correct. Monitor. Yeah,
a
there's a difference
nationwide,
between monitoring
right. He's doing a
and
nationwide
imposing.
community quarantine. A nationwide community quarantine where you are required to wear face masks, face shield in public places, especially when you go inside air-conditioned establishments, and then you have to maintain social distancing, and you are required to take your own vaccine. You have to schedule yourself for vaccine. However, over 40% of our population refuse to be vaccinated. But I think the statistics should be beyond 50%. Because that could be configured, not proposing, because a lot of the majority of our population refuses to subject themselves to this type of experimental drug that they know has not yet been proven its efficacy. The people, they may not understand the mechanics or the implications of vaccine, but they are afraid because of what they hear among their relatives that suffer some adverse effects from these vaccines. Some of them have already died, and that's why it is fairly widespread among the community that they refuse. In fact, those who already taken their first job, they decided not to take the second job after hearing those adverse effects.
Okay, so it has now come to a tipping point, as I've said, only in the Philippines, that Filipinos are more fearful of their government than the virus itself. Okay, and then already Duterte, President Duterte, has already exceeded his authority in that the national emergency law has already formally expired, actually expired. So what he's doing now is imposing martial law, undeclared martial law. Even if he declares martial law, he hasn't declared martial law even. He's just imposing his unauthorized will on the people, against the people's will. So it becomes a constitutional crisis in that you have to seek, you have to file a petition with the Supreme Court to freeze everything and to take judicial notice of what's happening as a matter of life and death.
So
people now can, so to speak, can just try to avoid and hide and seek is what's going to happen until it becomes really a game of, it's an end game. It's not an end point at all. And this is what's leading me to prepare, according to my observation, a governance by objective. There's such a thing as management by objective. My draft of an idea is an governance by objective, in that, if you will, you can probably do a chart, a parallel processing chart, horizontal lines, under which the category of scientific, medical, political, and logical parallel processing, in that you will find a common denominator no matter what the objective is of the Department of Health, be it be it towards more vaccination, towards prevention or spread of the virus, or towards a cure, or towards an endure. So it they must have an end point of what's becoming an end game instead of an end point. If the end point is like prevention, you will find that in the objective of prevention, cure, which has never been the objective at all, or endure, or more vaccination, you will find the common denominator is data driven.
Mhm.
It never changes at all. And and since they own the data, they do their own reporting. They can manipulate the data according to their uh, so-called objective. And the objective is still no longer prevention but vaccination. Now it has shifted from prevention to vaccination, which still
Yeah.
connected to prevention, because they want everybody to be vaccinated in order to prevent the contamination and spread of the virus. So one thing that you will find is everything is based on data driven campaign. Uh, there's no there's no distinction whether the data is scientific, legal, political, or medical. Nothing at all. They cross between lines just to fit their campaign, and so that's what would like to happen is for experts in the field of law, science, and medical to get together and form an organized group or resistance. First, do everything you can legally and constitutionally first, because they're really into the line of least resistance among our people. They're bulldozing their way into the people's lives. So it's really a martial law, undeclared martial law. Toti.
When you say the word martial law, it refers to military takeover. But in this case, it's not the military that's taken over. The mandate requiring or requiring all citizens to subject themselves to the rules and dictates of a civilian government. Is it proper or is it legal for the citizens to call upon our military to take action and to protect the rights of the citizens? Because in this regard, the justification of the administration or the office of the president is that they are doing this for the good of the health benefits of the citizen. Whereas what right does the president or the administration have on the individual health concern of every citizen?
Well, yeah, he may have the welfare, so to speak, of the people, but the end does not justify the means.
Mm.
So what he's doing now is an unconstitutional dereliction of his duty to protect the welfare of the people. It's no longer according to the people's will. It's no longer their welfare because it's being imposed on them. But even if the objective is their welfare, still he's doing it unwittingly under the principle of the end does not justify the means, be it illegal or unconstitutional. What is he a president for? So therefore, his violation is violating his own oath of office as a dereliction of duty to redress people's grievances. And the people's grievances right now is that they don't like to be vaccinated because it's against their will, and because they're not convinced by the data-driven statistics of the government or the Department of Health itself. So what can you do? So the people has no choice because they have no way of resisting now. So it becomes, at the very least, a constitutional crisis, and the people can do so without inciting sedition,
Okay,
because this is now going to be an armed resistance anyway.
I see. You mentioned about data-driven evidence to prove this, that the regulation or the procedures should be subjected to such. However, the agency that is been tasked to gather these statistics, what you call the vaccine adverse effect reporting system, or VAERS, is under the Office of the Department of Health. And unfortunately, there has been no update from that agency telling us what we know about what is already subscribed under the adverse effects of this vaccine. But you can see from the posting on the social media, particularly on Facebook, there are already countless of deaths being posted. Some by at a very young age. And although they do not claim that the death was caused by vaccines or COVID-19, but it is very common lately that the postings of this are more frequent this year than they were compared last year. Would that be already be a basis to say that the reference for our data would be subscribed to these postings on social media?
Yeah, in the absence of their selective data reporting, then you can gather people's data-driven statistics themselves, Toti. So you've got to have some kind of documentation under all of these categories of science and medical and logical and legal to at least put forward a resistance that can justify legally and constitutionally people's against people's will.
Mm.
So, you know, besides the fact that actually the government is now bulldozing their way, the people, Filipinos now are caught flat-footed. You don't know what to do. So there's a sense of panic now because they're more afraid of their government than the virus itself.
Yeah.
Do you have such a kind of a group, a resistance group, so to speak, even under the surface?
Well, there are a few loose groups, I would say loose, because probably there is one group of some advocates, but of course they may have some biases and some internal conflicts. But if we were to look for an independent body, particularly a trustworthy agency, I would look upon the Public Attorney's Office, the PAO, who has been very active in reporting or filing cases and gathering data against those who have been inflicted by the dengue vaccine. However, in the approach of our chairman, Butch Valdez of KDP, who has talked to the forensics investigator in the PAO office, Dr. Erfe, it was noted by the Dr. Erfe that they have some kind of a restriction from the office of the president not to gather reports, side effects, or deaths caused by the vaccine, particularly for COVID-19. There were no restriction on the reports or the side effects caused by dengue vaccine, but with regards to for the treatment and the vaccination, in particular with COVID-19, the agency has been restricted. the question now is there legality? Is that not an abuse of authority on the office of president to suspend or refuse these public authorities office in gathering such data?
Oh yes, overall he's already exceeded his authority. There's no more authority constitutionally, and he's now in violation or dereliction of his duty to address people's grievances.
Mm.
So it becomes really a constitutional crisis first, and do everything in your power and in your capacity as a people to at least file a free petition with the Supreme Court to take judicial notice of what's happening. Do it formally, and something that will show that you have done everything constitutionally, legally, short of a political will to resist right now, as a basis for as a umbrage against other intervention, be it locally, nationally, or internationally, that you have done everything in your capacity to seek the redress with the Supreme Court,
Right.
for the Supreme Court to issue a show cause order against the president, and in such a show cause of order, he has to freeze all this implementation right there and then, to give pause for some adjustments, and for the Supreme Court to decide whether to formally declare that the president is exceeded his constitutional authority, because the national emergency law has already expired, and that what he's doing now is an undeclared medical martial law, and in such a way that the means or the end does no longer justify the means. So he will be in for, this will do him in. And I don't know, the short of really physical and actual political will resistance, then the people have to fight for their lives, so to speak, literally. Toti. So file a petition. I think there's a petition that's for free. Well, let the Supreme Court entertain it right away, with or without a fee. Everything is being driven now by monetary considerations. Even with the allowance of Governor Gwen Garcia, it's still powered and made to order payment, even for OFWs, to just to bulldoze their way, their will to on Governor Gwen Garcia.
Yeah. You did mention that in our first meeting together with Nicanor Perlas and Attorney Melchor Magdamo. But one thing that we have observed, we noted during that mentioning of filing a case or petitioning with the Supreme Court, Attorney Magdamo cited that out of the 15 justices sitting right now in the Supreme Court, 13 have been appointed by the incumbent presidency. So the likelihood of that being heard by the Supreme Court is rather not encouraging. Now, beyond that, the other agency that probably we would look into, beside the Supreme Court, would probably the military. That's the other vehicle that we have to seek, because unless the petition filed with the Supreme Court has not taken priority into this case, because as we would recall, the only way that the Supreme Court will take action to this petition is there has to be some reliable data. And it is rather too defeating that the only authority that will be subject to, can be allowed to gather this data as already in the purview, within the hands of the abusive office of the president, be it under the Department of Health, where the vaccine adverse effects reporting system is underway, or even with the public attorney's office, wherein the Department of Justice is the one that supersedes or as the governing authority over that agency. So no matter which channels we bring this petition, be it in the executive or the judiciary, or even in Congress, the level of confidence among the citizens is rather to entrench in pursuing such case. It's like it's a lose-lose situation. There is no way that the petition can be gained unless there is already a military action. As you have said, an armed resistance. But the only sector that are armed in this country are the military, the armed forces. Unless we go and talk to the insurgents, the communists, or the Muslim separatists.
No, what I'm saying, Toti, is that just go through the motions to establish documentation. And under these exigent times, we know that the Supreme Court is not a fact finder. They may say, hey, you don't have the facts. But that's what I call under the theory of judicial notice. Who needs facts and documentation, as a matter of fact, when they can see it right before their eyes? What's happening? It's a matter of life and death. It's no longer a threat. It's happening. So under that theory of judicial notice, just go through the motions, whether they hear it or not. Let it be established that you filed a show cause order to the President of the Philippines. And then you'll be covered under the umbrage of you have done everything you can in your power and capacity, and the people's will to be addressed as a matter of life and death. Then on that basis, then even the military say, the people have already filed a petition to show cause order to the office of the president. And now it's with the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, even if it ignores it, is still documented because you filed something legally. And it's on the record that the people, since it's been filed, that the Supreme Court ignored it. So you now have two bases under the executive branch and the Supreme Court branch, or the
judiciary.
The highest law of the land constitutionally, that the people's grievances have been ignored. So what will the military do? It's all documented, so they have a basis for them to enforce and protect the people against life and death.
Okay.
Go through the motions.
Right.
Even if it's handwritten, file it to the Supreme Court.
Would such motion be the legalist manner, meaning you need a lawyer, or would just any concerned citizen could be as long as able to write it, articulate it properly, whether in a form of a plea, a motion to plea, without the necessary format?
No, let it be drafted by a lawyer as much as possible according to the form, and let a group that is recognizable to file it.
Okay.
You have a process wherein I think it's called the writ of amparo. That's free and that can be filed by the people. But let some lawyers gather together, naman, for as a patriotic act to at least help the people put it together.
Right. For my benefit and the benefit of our listeners, Dr. Posadas, what is the writ of amparo?
That's what I was thinking, but I'm not sure whether it's applicable or not. So check your lawyers there, because I don't, as far as I can remember, some time ago there was a process where you can file something for free, and without fact-finding, a writ of mandamus called the writ of amparo. So check with Melchor.
Okay.
Melchor is the one that's available right away.
Right, right.
But
The
you
writ
have to
of
put it together.
the writ of amparo applies to what kind of cases?
We said, there you go again. You got me there, Toti. It's been some time when after I read that, and there was a case like that, but I don't remember really specifically what the writ of amparo is.
Okay.
Writ of amparo is something that's really filed right away without any fact-finding documents, and at the same time, it's to produce something before the court.
All right. Okay. That we will look into. And getting once we already gathered all if we already exercise all possible means.
Yeah, go through the motions of all means. Yeah, constitutional,
Right.
legally, political.
And then that's when we call on upon the military to take action.
Yeah, but file it first, and you got to have a result or an answer or a reply from the Supreme Court, whether they ignore it or they will do something about it, or even show cause order right away.
Okay, here's a definition of the writ of amparo as I gathered. It is a Mexican in origin. Amparo literally means protection in Spanish. It is a remedy available to any person whose right to life, liberty, and security is violated or threatened with violation of an unlawful act or omission of public official or employee or of a private individual or entity. I think you're
Exactly.
that's the right track.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of taking it into form.
Correct.
Okay.
So you have exhausted all means, constitutionally, legally, and politically, to show the military for them to protect the people. Because what Duterte is doing now actually is no longer authorized or no longer constitutional. Is
Okay.
bulldozing his will on the people.
All right.
On a personal capacity, not as a president of the Philippines. And my goodness, he's no longer, he doesn't feel for the people anymore.
Yes. That has it's been criticized.
Even if he tries to build a nation, so to speak, he's already employing the principle of the end does not justify the means. He's no longer president of the Philippines as a matter of in actual under this exigent times. He's no longer president of the Philippines. In that, he's no longer protecting the welfare of the people.
Okay.
And he's using the principle again. The end does not justify the means. So, based on your motion with the Supreme Court, which is part of your doing everything you can by all means for the military to base it on to enforce and protect the people. Now you can formally, some group or the other, that when the Supreme Court ignores it, right away, the moment that it's filed and they don't respond, then already you have something filed and which the Supreme Court has ignored. So the people's army, which is now the armed forces of the Philippines, or a part thereof, can enforce the law and order this time.
Okay. You mentioned in your introduction earlier that you were thinking of something leading to some kind of governance this thing about the writ of amparo, would that be some kind of a manifestation of some governance?
Correct. Yes.
Can you
Yeah.
further elucidate for the benefit of our listeners?
Okay, even if they have an objective, which has always been one objective, which is to prevent contamination or spread of the virus kuno, still everything is based on data. There's never been an objective other than prevention. There's never been an objective to cure. There's never been an objective even to endure. There's never been objective uh, to um, to show some kind of an implementation wherein some kind of a outside of what they call FDA approved prescriptions or medicine. They've never under exigent times for the FDA to make some adjustments in adopting some emergency authority to allow cure when it's happening right before their eyes. You can include that, as a matter of fact, in your writ of mandamus or a writ of amparo with the Supreme Court, that even the Department of Health is ignoring all these other objectives. There is no end point in the Department of Health's objective. It's not an end point; it becomes an end game. They're just manipulating everything according to their objective. One objective, prevention, which is not even happening.
Okay. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Posadas. I think we can already conclude our discussion right at this point, at this juncture. And allow me to read to you some of the comments raised by our viewers. We have Connie Pandangani. She is watching. Also, Avelina Olaes, who is also watching us. And extension of best wishes from Merlin Lawyers. From Zenea Arcilia, greetings from Hong Kong, extending her blessings as well. From Angeline Lissing, extending her greetings. Good evening for wherever in Hong Kong. Also, we have greetings from John Cyril Onato, watching from Capiz. And Ewan Iuha Erlino, his comment is, sana makontra po yung pending bill po ni Congressman Barsaga na igawing mandatory vaccine. Meron po bang congressman na kumukontra sa panukalang batas ng mandatory? Which brings me to this question, Dr. Posadas. Is mandatory vaccine, universally speaking, is that allowed by law under any regulations such as the Nuremberg Code?
Yeah, the Nuremberg Court can apply in an international case. When you file something in a case under international jurisdiction, then that applies. But the Nuremberg Court can be cited, but it's not really a basis for a violation of human rights. You have to address it locally first or nationally before internationally. That will prepare the documentation for the international case.
Right.
But now, address it, what's happening right before your eyes.
Right. Because if this bill of Congressman Barsaga prospers in Congress about making vaccination mandatory, perhaps the objection will come from the people in saying they should apply first the Nuremberg Code.
Yeah, well, no. Apply first the
writ of amparo.
The dereliction of duty of the president.
Dereliction.
They cannot. If they is pass that law, then they themselves are violating the principle of the end does not justify the means. That's an international and eternal principle that the end does not justify the means.
Okay. we would be very careful in crafting this, Dr. Posadas, because some quarters might misconstrue this as a political harassment to the administration, considering election season is already just around the corner, and they might and maybe the opposition to the administration might be piggyback on this type of motion. But if the intent is only for the people's interest and not for any political parties for that matter, or any candidate for that matter, this has to be segregated.
Correct. Well, that's in the political realm. And political opposition, use it by anybody for that matter, is not a crime. So mix it up. That's in the political realm. But you have to address it formally under the Constitution. This crisis. So at the very bottom or bottom line, so to speak, is that it becomes a constitutional crisis. Then you get the attention of all the branches of the government.
I see. All right.
So when there is a constitutional crisis, then there's a vacuum of leadership. Then what's the natural process? Leadership loves a vacuum. So that's where the leadership of the military will fill in. Naturally.
Okay.
They have to come in.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Posadas, for sharing that views. And from here, we can conclude our discussion. Without much ado, we'd like to thank you on behalf of our viewers and listeners of this program. And would you have any parting words to our viewers?
Well, my parting words are do something about it. Do everything in your capacity. Go through the motions of filing a petition with Supreme Court. You have done everything politically, legally, and constitutionally. And once it becomes a crisis or a conflict between the Supreme Court and the executive branch and even the legislature, and the conflict among the three main branches of the government, then there's a chaos and a constitutional crisis. And when everybody does not follow anybody else, or even among the three branches of the government, then there's a crisis politically and constitutionally, wherein there's a vacuum of leadership now, where chaos and disorder will have to follow. So what's the duty of the military is to take over and bring back, at the very least, right away, peace, law and order, if not peace and order.
All right. There you have it, folks. Our reviews from our reliable resource, who is a doctorate in jurisprudence, none other than Dr. Robert Posadas. Dito na po kami papaalam. Abangan niyo po sa sunod na programa, ang Isulong Pilipinas. Sandok sa inyo ni Ka-RJ Abeliana. At mamaya pong gabi, ang Talakayang Bayan dito po sa Katipunan Channel. Maraming salamat. Ito yung lingkod, Toti, kasi nagpapaalam.